Hello, California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have the founder, Chris Bulman, and financial advisor, Scott Bulman. Chris, Scott, always a joy to see both of you. How are you this week?
It's good to be here. I'm going to answer you today so that he can't
jump in and say something witty, right?
It's really good to see you.
I was trying to think of something
back.
coming up before I started, but then I had something sly to say, but then he waved and he did his own damage to himself.
gosh.
It's my new signature
move on camera.
People call asking about it.
Well, if you're new to us, we always say we're not your average financial show. We like to have a lot of fun here, but the show is really, at the end of the day, all about you, providing you with solid financial information and education so that you can make the best decisions possible with your hard-earned money. And today we need to talk about a subject that I know isn't always a lot of fun for folks to think about, and that is legacy planning. But by far, it is so crucial to make sure that you have a solid estate plan in place. And really, guys, at the end of the day, this is about folks getting to decide who, what, and how, right? That's what legacy planning is all about. So what would you say to someone who is maybe considering engaging in this legacy planning process for the very first time?
I would say if you haven't done it, not having a plan is having a plan. So if you have a garden that you've tilled and you never plant anything, stuff's going to grow. Weeds are going to grow, things that you don't want in there. And it's the same thing with a financial plan or a legacy plan or trust and estate planning. If you don't do it, you're going to have weeds. You're going to have probate. You're going to have time. Your kids, now you'll be gone, but your kids will be maybe a year, up to 2 years going through probate process, dealing with courts, the fees that you have to pay to go through the process. And a lot of that, if not all of it, can be mitigated by just having an estate plan or legacy plan. Yeah.
You mentioned probate, and I think a lot of folks don't understand all that goes into that. Not only can it cause significant time delays, but it can be very, very costly.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of public opinion, which means that anyone could go down to the courthouse, pull up a copy of your will, see what you had, how much you had, who got what. It can just get very, very messy very quickly, and that's what we want to help avoid for folks. And to your point too, if you don't have your own plan, guess what? The state has one for you.
Has a plan for you. And I think a lot of what's kept people from getting a plan, a trust. Legacy is a dramatic word. A trust is a scary thing to a lot of folks. They, especially in California, I don't need one. I don't have enough assets. If you own a home in California, you need a trust. Period. Because of what Chris just said and you referenced, the probate's such a pain in the butt, and it takes a long time. Most California homes are very valuable and will only continue to be so, and part of the cost of probate is dictated by the cost of the house, and then at the end the judge says, well, your ex-wife gets it and the stepkid, and you're like, everyone's like, that's not what we wanted. So just understanding it's not as scary as it sounds in walking folks through that. It's like, because again, you button it up now, so God forbid something happen to you, the loved ones are taken care of.
Right, exactly.
And I'm just going to throw it out there right here at the beginning of the show. The cost of having an estate plan done, a typical, like 95% of you out there watching, if it's not a crazy advanced plan that we need to bring in, extra attorneys, you can get it done for under $2,000. Now, a lot of you out there are saying, wait a second, I've been quoted 5, 6, 7, 4.
You probably have.
We can get it done for $2,000, and we can get your estate plan done, your durable powers of attorney, your will, as well as retitling your house into the trust. So there's a lot of things that you can get done. And by the way, if you own $1 million house, the cost of going through probate, even if you owe $1 million on the house, is judged by the value of the house, not your equity in the house. So you may have zero equity. You could still end up spending $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 going through probate.
And it won't be you, it'll be your kids, and they'll be really thanks, Mom and Dad, for this mess you left.
So two things there. If you don't have an estate plan, give us a call and ask what's involved in it, how we can help you. But also, if your parents are still living and they don't have one, you don't want to be the one going through all this hassle. So make sure that they have one in place.
I typically find that a lot of folks become a lot more amenable to engaging in their own estate planning if they've had to wade through a mess and a nightmare that's been left behind in their lap from caring for their parents or other relatives. And the sad thing is all this can be prevented, right? And so, we've talked about a lot already so far, as we always do. Can you unpack exactly what a trust is? Because I think some people think, to your point, oh, I don't even need an estate plan. I don't have enough. Or I have a will. That should be enough, right? Let's talk about what a trust is and why it's applicable to so many folks.
First off, we're not estate attorneys. Chris plays one on television, but
So I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night.
He did sleep at a Holiday Inn. We'll just, at a very basic level, look what's inside. Obviously, one thing, like we said, the house is owned by the trust. Once you have a trust, so when you pass away, the house owns a trust. It bypasses probate.
Well, let me just back up if I can. That the trust is like a bucket,
Yeah.
right? You're basically putting all of your stuff in this bucket.
Yeah, it's like a bowl or bucket to receive assets. And
We actually put it in a binder, not a bucket, but I
that
see where you're
too.
going.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Cut
Sorry,
his mic.
Scott.
Another thing too is what's called the healthcare directive. These are the not fun questions to answer, but it's one of those things where if you were to unfortunately be in one of these situations, you're on life support, what have you, you might not want to be left on life support, or maybe you would, or maybe you don't want to be cremated, or maybe you don't want to donate organs, or you do. These are the tough questions you answer now, so no one's left wondering, what did Dad want?
Yeah.
Another thing you can designate what's called a financial trustee. I call it the quarterback, the financial quarterback. If something happens to us, is it the daughter, the son, a friend, a brother that helps navigate all this to make sure that the financial elements are handled the way the trust intended? And you have the same thing for the healthcare directive, where generally that's each other's spouse, but maybe you're not married or you're widowed. You want to designate someone like, if something happens to me, this is a person I can say, yeah, cut the cord on mom, or no, leave mom alive. But you're setting all these players in place, so when your time comes, it makes it that much easier to segue through.
Yeah,
Right.
while you still have the capacity to do
Right.
it. We just had a call this past week, actually. A young man, I think 65, called in. Dad had passed away. Dad had been a long-time client of ours, over 14 years, I think. And the first thing he wanted to do was know about the assets. Dad promised me I was going to get this and this and this. We couldn't even talk to him because he doesn't have the proper paperwork, the powers of attorney to do that. He's not the person that's allowed to talk to us.
That your client
Exactly.
designated, right?
So we can only talk to the person that's designated by the client, and then of course we have to have the proper paperwork.
Right.
And it's the good thing is the client himself had this all laid out before he died. So it doesn't matter what the children say, the 60, 70-year-old children, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes they're going to start bickering, saying, no, this is supposed to be mine. You're wasteful. Dad never wanted you to get anything, whatever it is. The person's wishes can be carried out after death or even after incapacity.
And another thing too, you might have a trust. I met with someone the other day, they had a trust that's 20 years old.
Right.
Does it need updating? I had someone a few years ago came in, their trust, they looked at it like, oh my gosh, my ex-husband is still the beneficiary of my
Wow.
trust.
Yep.
Obviously that's not what she wanted at that point. So if you
Yep.
do have a trust and it's been a while, we knew a guy used to say, is there dust on your trust? Which, funny joke Chris made up. It
I'm the
probably
guy.
needs, it might need an update.
Yeah.
And just say, are all the proper players still designated? Or maybe there's grandkids in the picture now. You want to leave money to them or leave something to them. So it's just, if you have one, good job. Have you updated it? Is it
Yes.
Is it showing your most recent wishes depending on how your life has
Right.
changed?
And is it funded?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people they set it up, but then they
Yeah.
never properly put the assets in the trust.
Yeah,
either.
or point the assets to the trust.
Yeah,
Right.
and then we see that a lot when people buy those online packages, maybe $2.99 or $3.99 or something, and they buy the package, they get the paperwork, they get the binder, but they never complete it. They never retitle the accounts into the trust. You can say in the trust that something is supposed to be there, but the accounts have to be titled properly as
Right.
well. And the other thing I would say, we see a lot of people that come in, maybe you're 40, 35, 50. When you started having children, you were already at your place of work, or you already had IRAs, you already had 401ks. So you didn't, when you open those accounts, you didn't have a beneficiary to list. Maybe then you got married, maybe then you got married again. Those beneficiaries, more often than should be, are incorrect or
Yes.
completely lacking.
Yep.
So if you haven't done this, go and look at your beneficiaries. How do you have your IRA set up? How do you have your 401k set up right now? Every qualified account, IRA, 401k, 457, 403b, life insurance, annuity, pensions, they will all have beneficiaries that you should have listed. You need to go back in and review those beneficiaries, or call us. We can help you dig it all up, review it, and make the changes you need to
And
make.
don't, see this a lot, Do not name your minor child or minor children as a beneficiary on your plans, because that is going straight to probate if you do that. Like, well, my son was born, I want to make sure he's the backup beneficiary if something happens. No, do not name a minor in that role.
And because what will happen?
Probate.
Right.
It's going to probate.
Right, because they are a minor.
Yeah, they're a minor. Yes.
Someone has to be appointed to
Exactly, to
watch
be the
over
guardian
them.
over
So
that.
which is why you want the trust, and then you get to name the person who gets to watch
That's
over.
another thing the
Right.
trust has, is naming the guardian.
Exactly,
Chris is
yes.
a guardian of my kids if something happens. Surprise.
Thank you.
Well, clearly so much goes into this, and we are going to have to take a quick break. I know that you guys are not estate attorneys yourselves, but talk about the process and what you can actually do for folks from a legacy planning perspective when they come in for their complimentary financial compass review.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're going to take a look and review all those things we just talked about. All of your qualified plans, your non-qualified plans. Where's the money going? We want to plan with the end in mind. What is the ultimate goal? Is the goal to spend this money down? Is the goal for the money to go to the kids? Is it to give it away? Whatever it is. So we're going to review that. If we need to, we're going to get on the phone with an attorney. And oftentimes I'm texting attorneys while we're in a meeting to get some answers that we need. So, I mean, we work with many attorneys, just like we work with, mortgage brokers and CPAs. So we'll be able to help you without you having to go that next step. And then if we need to bring them in, if you have an estate of, $5, $10, $20 million, we're going to want to have some attorneys involved in this as well.
And so you partner together with that
Absolutely.
person's attorney. And,
Yeah.
yeah. But I appreciate that you guys want to remove the overwhelm and you make it so easy, breaking it down, making it really simple. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be complicated. It's you get to decide. You have the power to decide what you want to have happen with your things once you're no longer here. And we know that that can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. And the team of Bulman Wealth would love to help and serve you if this is something that you need help with. So to get your complimentary financial compass review scheduled, you can do so by calling the number you see at the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, you can simply pull it out, open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Bulman Wealth Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary view that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the transfer of wealth. What are some more tax efficient ways that you can plan for your wealth to be transferred to those that you love? Stay with us.
I became a financial advisor coming out of the tough times of the tech bubble in the late 90s, early 2000s. Moved to California, uprooted my life, changed everything, and then 9/11 happened the first week in this industry. I was prepared already to help people from tough times coming out of the tech bubble, but what we didn't expect is there were 3 years in a row when I started of the market dropping. That really impacted my whole career. It crafted and created how we manage money. We don't want our clients to ever lose like that. And so everything we do is built on protection. The goal of our practice and the people that we meet with is to remove the fear and uncertainty that we all face, and it goes back to those first years in the market.
I was a sportscaster on television. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. In TV, you bounce around, and went to Mississippi and worked at the NBC station there and covered, college football's big, NFL's big, all that stuff. And a guy I knew relatively well in a different state decided to get out of TV, and in this opportunity, I always enjoyed finance and money, and it seemed really exciting. I like to communicate to folks and feel like I can communicate well. It was such a fresh, kind of different career than what I was used to that it was exciting.
We go into every meeting with no place to get. We're there to meet with you, to discover your needs, find out where you are at that point, and how we can help you build and craft that plan for the future.
Welcome back, California. You're watching Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Chris Bulman and Scott Bulman. We are talking today all about the importance of engaging in legacy planning. And, before the break, we gave folks a lot of things to think about, especially if they have not engaged in estate planning yet. Let's talk now about creating greater tax efficiency with the transfer of wealth. I think that's where folks can easily get overwhelmed, is not understanding how different things are treated from a tax perspective. So let's get to it. What do folks need to understand about what they have and how it gets treated from that tax perspective, and how they can pass on their wealth in the most tax efficient manner possible?
Yeah, I think the first thing to realize, the history of tax brackets and where they've been and where they're at today and where they're going in the future. We're still, believe it or not, as much as I pay taxes and hate it, taxes are on sale. So the more you can get taxes out of the way today, this year, 2024, 2025, you're going to save yourself money.
Because we're in the third lowest tax bracket that
Yeah,
we've been in
isn't it
history.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
What a treat. Wow, we're so lucky.
It's so interesting because mortgage rates are so high right now,
Right.
but they're still at a historically low rate when you look
Comparatively,
long-term.
right, yeah.
But it seems so high because of where we've just come from.
Sure.
Similar with taxes, they are going to, I believe that they're going to be higher and potentially much higher in the future. So you're going to want to understand that and understand, first of all, who are your beneficiaries? Where do you want the money to go? And have you actually listed those on all the accounts as we were talking about in the last segment? Make sure that you've updated all those beneficiaries. Secondarily, how is the wealth going to pass? You're going to get some accounts, non-qualified accounts, your house, things like that. You're going to get what's called a step up in cost basis, right? So if you have invested $1 million and it grew to $5 million, and then you pass away and it's all in stocks, that will get a step up in cost basis. So when the kids inherit it, let's say they get $5 million, they could sell it that day and not pay any taxes on it, as long as you're within the estate tax threshold,
Right.
which we still would be. Houses, the same thing. Annuities, not so much. Growth on annuities is taxed as regular income. So if you put a $500,000 into a non-qualified annuity and it grows to $1 million, that's great. It's been tax deferred all this time. If your children inherit it, the children will owe capital gains, short term, which is regular income tax, on the $500,000 in growth. So you want to make sure you understand that. And then as we get into qualified accounts, you need to understand the tax ramifications of going from yourself to a spouse and then from the spouse to the kids.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So,
I was going to say,
yeah.
because Chris took the entire script, so I'd have
There's
nothing
a lot
left
in
to
this
say.
brain. A lot in this brain.
Yeah.
You never have a shortage of things to say.
I don't, except when my wife asks me
Are
questions.
you nicer to clients than you are to me?
Yes, absolutely. And to Kristen. So sometimes, like you were saying, who it's going to dictates the taxation of it. So if you have an IRA, 401k, a qualified plan, if you pass it on to a spouse, when you pass away, they inherit it as if it was always theirs.
Right.
So in terms of taxation, it's just like they always had that account. It's different though if it's going to children or a non-spouse. The Secure Act a couple years ago, and they're changing it all the time, changed the structure of how they receive that. Those non-spouse beneficiaries, I have a client, I'm walking through it right now. She inherited a decent amount of money from her mother's IRA. She has a 10-year window where you have to liquidate those funds. So say your father passed away end of last year and you receive this IRA money, you have the next decade to liquidate it. If you need the money or not, Uncle Sam needs it.
Right.
So that's the structure that changed. In the past, you could stretch it out over decades.
lifetime,
Now you
right.
have a decade
Yep.
to liquidate it.
Yeah, which means a lot of folks who are inheriting these large sums of money are also in their higher earning years, which automatically pushes them into a higher tax bracket, and boom, the IRS is going to get more money as a result.
Yeah, I mean, we have some clients right now that just inherited about $5 million each, and a good chunk of that is in qualified money. One of them's already retired, so it's not going to impact him that much, but just because of the other non-qualified assets he has, his income's over $450,000. So he's going to be in a high tax bracket, and he has to take all of that money over the next 10 years. He has to take RMDs and deplete it over 10 years.
Yes.
The other brother still works, owns a business, even in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
And it's just set up so that they have to get the money. The IRS loves it because now they're getting all those taxes in 10 years instead of
Yep.
waiting for the next 40 or 50. But for the folks that inherit the money, it's great that you're inheriting money, but it's not
Right.
usually the most tax efficient.
Well, and not to throw more, fuel on the fire, but if you, depending on how old you are, if you're already claiming Social Security, that can impact the taxation of your Social Security.
Yes.
It could impact your Medicare benefits. There's a 2-year look-back period, and if you earn too much, then you could be hit with IRMA, that income-related monthly adjustment amount. I mean, it just speaks to, you have to look at how all these pieces fit together so you don't incur unnecessary tax liability.
And that's why we say, if this is you, you've probably thought these things, maybe you've avoided it for years. then you can call the number below. You can the QR code that pops up here in a second. You can click on that and schedule a time to have a conversation. We can walk through these. We can look to see who your beneficiaries are. We can look to see and explain the different accounts you might have, how they're going to be taxed, or measures we can begin to take now to lessen the tax burden that your children might have or whoever you're passing that money on to. So if this is you, amongst other financial questions you might have, call the number, schedule a time, and we'll have a talk and see if there's any guidance we can offer.
Wonderful, Scott, Chris, thank you so much. That number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685, or as Scott mentioned, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We know that a lot of this might be new to you, but the good news is it's not new to Chris and Scott and the team of Bulman Wealth Group, and they are here to help and serve you. You do not have to go through this alone, so we encourage you to reach out and get the guidance that you need so that you can make sure that the legacy you leave is one of peace and not strife to those that you love. Stay with us. We'll be back after this.
Successful retirement to me is someone who doesn't have to worry about where their next paycheck's going to come from, where the income's going to come from. Are they going to run out of income? Are they going to run out of money? Are they going to meet their financial goals with respect to maybe they want to leave money to their children, maybe they want to leave money to a philanthropy or a university? Solving all those issues is what a secure retirement looks like.
Being able to wake up and know the day is an open slate and not having to worry about things. Or say someone's going on a trip with family, they're going to the beach, and if the headline says, the market's down again or something, they're not concerned. Bulman Wealth has my back here. We've got a plan in place. My portfolio is set up in a way that concern is not there. The plan and finances should not be the concern once they get to that stage of working with us and entering into retirement.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Chris Bulman and Scott Bulman. We've been talking today all about the importance of engaging in legacy planning, estate planning, and really this is just one piece of that full financial plan that you develop for your clients. Let's talk about how legacy planning fits into this greater plan that you build for folks.
I think it's like I'm a big music fan, and like you use a band analogy. Think of a rock band. You've got your different players. It's like, we got a rock band, we don't have a drummer. Well, there's no groove, there's no basis, there's no beat to follow. And you can almost say the same with a legacy plan is that baseline, kind of the beat, the structure of a financial plan is that. If you have kids, if you've got life insurance involved, if you own a home in California, you don't have a trust. Before we talk about investments and all these nice things that can be done, we need to address that. You can't start the band without the guy playing the beat. And I would argue it's the same with a legacy plan as we're trying to build that, that bedrock for your full financial plan.
Yeah, it's about having, just like anything, you need a foundation, and the foundation
That's the word I was
is
looking for.
protect your family.
Yes.
And you protect your family with, as they're younger, with life insurance, disability insurance, and a trust. And as you get older, you need the trust for sure. Sometimes the life insurance can drop off if it's not as needed, if you have other wealth. But you always have to have the estate plan, the trust, the
Right.
durable powers of attorney,
Yep.
those types of things.
Well, and I always tell folks too that even though it's not necessarily always the most fun thing to think about, none of us want to think about when we're not here anymore, right? But it is by far one of the most loving things that you can do for those that you leave behind, because when someone's grieving, that's not the time on top of everything else that they want to have to wade through a legal mess, a financial mess that's been dumped in their laps. And I think what is sad is when I've seen this rip families apart, and it could have been prevented, right?
Yeah.
If the plan had been done.
And another thing I can do, families get interested. Families are always interesting. They get really interesting when someone passes and there's a lot of money involved. So another thing a trust can do is delineate, and it might silence some arguments or some of the peanut gallery thinking that something was theirs and it wasn't. It's like, if
Right.
you're not named there, you don't have a horse in this race. So it can help navigate those tough family times too. It's like, hey, grandma wanted this or dad wanted this. I'm sorry, the 10th cousin doesn't get a
Right.
payout from it. So
Yeah.
it's structuring exactly what you want to happen when you're not here.
Yeah, and I'll give a quick example of some clients that came to us sort of the end of last year and came in with, it was about $5 million in assets that we could help them with. But as we're talking, he said, oh yeah, Dad also owns these apartment complexes, these 6 houses, this. his estate's worth over $20 million. Now we have a whole nother issue that they're 4 siblings, they had no idea that they had, which is estate tax issues. So when we're able to look at the whole picture, both the legacy plan, the financial plan all together, then we can identify all kinds of issues that otherwise, if you're just going to some online brokerage or big box store, you're not going to get any of that, and you're going to have big problems later. We don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
So we need somebody looking at the whole picture.
Exactly.
Number one. Number two, a lot of you are thinking about moving out of the state. And I just want to make sure that people know Bulman Wealth Group is technologically savvy. We do meetings every single day with people on Zoom. Up and down the state, we have clients that have moved to Idaho, Nashville, all over Tennessee, the Carolinas, the East Coast, Pennsylvania, anywhere that's less expensive and less
Which is everywhere.
government.
Right.
Which is everywhere.
Better government than in California. So we see it all the time, and we love it because we continue those relationships. So we can
Yes.
still help their children that live here. We can help them when they live in other states,
Right.
and we love working with people that way as
And
well.
you make it so convenient that you can meet via Zoom, you can meet over the phone. Of course, you still love meeting with folks in person, but
Yeah.
if that's not convenient for you, just know that there are options available.
I have some clients, and Chris is the same, I've never been in the same room with. I know them very well. We've worked together for years, but it's been virtual. It doesn't have to be. Some people don't like that. But
But it's an option.
It's an option. If you want to be sitting at your couch having a discussion, I can show you all the same information. Then there's a nice convenience to that. And I think a lot of that pre-COVID wasn't the case. Now post-COVID, it's
a lot more common
comfort,
for
convenience.
folks.
Yeah, and a lot of us have gotten used to Zoom meetings over the past few years, but some of us haven't. So I want to assure you also, we have a tech team that can teach you how to use it, get it set up if you have a computer. We can get it all set up for you so that when your meeting time comes, you're ready to go. The other thing about the legacy plan, some people don't do it because it's a lot of work. It's this big thing to think about. Like I said, it's less than $2,000 in 95% of cases, and we can get it done in 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
So give us a call. We're here to help.
Yes. Yeah, I think it just really speaks to don't procrastinate. I mean, one, God forbid, covers the whole conversation, but it is so tragic when these things have not been buttoned up and then something happens.
Well, you see it every year. I think Prince was one, the singer,
so many
James
famous people.
Gandolfini, all these actors and
That never had a
entertainment
will in
people that
place.
never even had a will in place.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, you're just giving so much money away to people you didn't want it to go to.
Exactly. Yep. So it's all about protection and
Yeah.
protecting yourself and your loved ones. Well,
Yeah.
Chris Scott, thank you. I'm excited for more folks to connect with you as a result of today's episode. And as Chris just mentioned, if this has been hanging over your head, if you have known for a long time, gosh, it's been on my to-do list, but you keep kicking that can down the road, don't procrastinate. Today's the day. There are folks here at Bulman Wealth Group ready to help you. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call 888-970-4685. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next time here at Your Financial Compass.